Hello and welcome to the revived Dallas Aftershow here on JLJ Media. I'm James Live Jr., your host, and I'm JLJ Media. And I'm here with another podcaster who's been doing a Dallas recaps and reactions and just talks. And her podcast is good, folks, and it's big too, because I got some folks when she mentioned my podcast on her show. A bunch of folks came to me and they told me they came from you. So I want to thank her publicly for that too.
Hey.
It's Mary Hunter. Mary.
Hey.
And it's the Ewing BBQ Podcast. Of course, the Ewing barbecues were famous and infamous on the show. I love that title. You chose that. So first of all, where are you located and where are you doing your podcast from?
I am located in Michigan. I'm currently living in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I moved here from outside of Seattle a year ago.
Oh, wow.
And my podcast mates are from all over. Sarah's from Alabama. Josh is in Massachusetts, and Melanie is in North Carolina.
Yeah, I have one of my co-hosts for my current soap shows that I do is Mississippi. I love that podcast. Bring us all together. I mean, like,
yeah, right.
It's so wonderful. So you're a West Coaster. Then you're a Northwest Coaster, living in. Well,
I'm originally a Michigander who lived in Washington for a long time and has moved back now.
Okay, you're back home. Okay, I was saying, you're very much okay, but you had your time out there. Did you?
I did. I loved it.
You liked North? Yeah, it's beautiful up there.
I loved it. Yeah.
I heard Michigan's beautiful too. I've not been, but I heard it's beautiful. I've been through.
No, it's fine. But I'm a sort of like rainy, dreary weather kind of gal, so it worked for me.
I love it. That's why your skin's so nice and alabaster. Stay out of the sun. Yeah, stay out of the sun. Because the sun does damage, right? It does damage.
My brother always said it looked like that I laid out in the moonlight.
I like that. I like that very I do. Okay. So I gotta say this on camera, on mic, everybody listening.
Okay.
So I had at one point my podcast is doing very well. It's good. It has great view. We're doing blah blah. But I noticed a noticeable bump one day when all of a sudden I was like, oh, it really jumped up. I'm like, I don't think my episode was that no shade to my own self. But like, was I going to think that was a great episode? But then people were telling me in the comments, I found you from the Ewing BBQ Podcast. I'm like, the what? And it happened. It was like, I want to say like 15 people told me this.
Oh, and wow.
You were mentioned. So I want to publicly thank you for mentioning my podcast.
Yeah.
Find out, how did you find out my podcast and how did you? So yes, you just mentioned me or something on. I don't know the story.
One of our listeners told me there was another Dallas podcast, and I can't remember. Which I apologize to that listener because I don't remember which one it was. Yeah. And I was like, "What? Another Dallas podcast?" And immediately, I'm like, "Oh my god, someone's doing the same thing." And then I found you, and then I was like, "Oh no, this is totally different. This is awesome!" And like you're just talking about like Dallas things, and like I feel like our podcast kind of would work together, you know. Yes. So I wanted our listeners to know about you so they could go check it out, because the one thing we try not to do is have spoilers, because as happened when we first started recording our first season, we would talk about spoilers, and we got a lot of negative feedback because people were watching it for the first time. And I didn't even like think about that.
I wouldn't either. No.
There's a lot of millennials, and I guess millennials during the pandemic who started watching it. And so I was spoiling things for them, and then I felt awful. So we try not to have spoilers. So I try to beep them out. I
spoil everything. Oh well. So go listen first, and then come to me. Yeah, exactly.
Right. We have special episodes that we call our DOA meetings, which we do have spoilers for those.
I love that DOA meetings. I love that.
Okay. And then we're going to start having another thing where we're hopefully going to try to talk to, I don't know, like some of the actors on the show about spoilers and some of the things that they do outside, where hopefully maybe today, Josh is going to be talking to Omri Katz about things that are like not so much Dallas related, but like what he's doing now. And we're gonna call that like I think we're gonna call it After the Barbecue. It's the
That's cute.
so
Cute. Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, I spoil everything. You guys, my fans know I spoil everything. Because you're right. I never thought about new people coming to it. I'm always thinking. I always think in the place of people revisiting it. Like
me too.
And revisit it because it was not just the original time period it was on, but they repeated it on many things for years also. So I thought that's funny. I never thought that. Okay, but my fans are saying. So I have to say this part, my fans know this. I stopped doing the show earlier this year because I was getting death threats, and I was getting. No, I'm telling you, man, and I say it out loud to people. I want people to know how fanatical people can be. I was getting fans who were chasing me. And we're going to talk about that. I want to ask you a question about that too. But the overwhelming fan, I took a break from this. The overwhelming fan response was, James, please come back. Please come back. And I'm so humbled by that, number one. Because again, like Mary said, my podcast is not the same as hers. It's a very different podcast about the same show we love. There's room for everybody to check it out. So I think people were just like, they like my style of what I'm doing. Because I was like, because I have people hounding me, trying to find me over. So here's one example. Mary. Pam. Two of my biggest episodes about Pam Ewing. She's a very popular character in this Dallas canon. We know that, and everything. And so they were very popular. So I talked about how Victoria Principal is so rich. And so has her own little world that she doesn't need the money to come back if she came back because she would want to. Yeah. And so far, she has not wanted to. So I'm just reporting it. I'm just like, she's like $3,000 million. She's rich. So I know a lot of folks are like, Bobby and Pam forever. I totally get that. I have no problem with that either. But people are trying to convince me. Like, no, she has to come back. She needs to come back. She needs. They have not asked her. I'm like, no, if they've asked her, that's a whole lie. They have asked her. She has said no. So that's why they killed her off, basically, on the new one. And so that's what happened to Annie. I thought Bobby wouldn't be single forever. I mean, he would move on with he's like, I mean, Annie was right. So anyway, so I got death threat. I got all this stuff. So I said, this is not worth it when he's saying, I'll find your daughter and grandchild. I was like, okay, I'm done. You guys win. I'm done. And I cut off. So for like 6 months, I haven't done one. And then I did one last week. And the fans were like, oh, we're so glad you're back. And I'm going to test the waters. I said, I want to talk to Mary as my second episode back. I do this when I was coming back. You were on my list. And I said, I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it, and we're going to see what happens, I guess, Mary. So that's what happened to me.
There are some very dedicated fans who have a lot of strong feelings about things. And I try to respect that. But also, like, I always say, like, I have my own opinions about things, and people can disagree with me. That's totally fine. It's a show. We can disagree. It's not real. It's fine. But like, I know that because Pam is a very touchy character. People are very protective of Pam, and I'm a Jenna Wade stan.
Oh, okay.
Pam, I don't dislike Pam. I used to dislike Pam when I was a kid. But I don't dislike Pam. Pam's fine. I dislike Jenna more. And I'm more like Bobby and Jenna forever. So people get really mad about that. They get really mad. Yeah. And also another one people get really mad about is Mandy Winger. People
I did Mandy Winger. It was very popular, but I did get lots of opinions. It was very popular.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. That's probably the Dream season. That will kick up a lot. I did an episode of Dream season, very popular, but lots of opinions about that season.
Yeah. I personally love the Dream season. I think it's one of the best seasons.
Yeah, me too. But so I'm going to ask you, because I haven't listened to your podcast to know about this or not. It was a gutsy move. I mean, I saw it live when it came out, so it was a gutsy move.
I did too.
And I was shocked. I look back on now going, well, I kind of see where they're coming from. They didn't want to have to do some outrageous thing to explain Bobby coming back, I guess. but it did take away some great stuff that we loved about the Dream season. I mean, I always feel like it's one of those. It's just like I see what they had and I'm a producer myself, so I see what they had to do. Kind of, I guess they thought it was its way out. I guess
choice. They made choices. I think in retrospect, I also have some big opinions that are probably not popular. I tend to think that bringing Bobby back was probably I think in the long run, a big mistake. Personally,
oh, I like that. Actually, okay.
Because I think that the show suffered after that. I think that it was great having Bobby back, but the fact that you lost all those, and I think it's, and this is going to be very controversial. I think that it's Katzman's thing when he came back and he tried to take the show back to the 70s when it was the late 80s, and that did not work. You had, because I've been sick the last couple of weeks, so I've just been marathoning seasons 7 and 8.
Okay.
And I'm just thinking about, like, there are actual scenes that would pass a Bechdel test. Women are talking about things that are not men. We have like, it's like actual characters and storylines that are like about things, and then Bobby comes back and just like a lot of that goes away.
It did. I remember Sue Ellen, Linda Gray, who I met in real life. She's wonderful. Linda Gray said, "I don't want Sue Ellen drunk again." Remember, that was her whole thing. So first episode, she had to be drunk for that first episode because that's where it ended originally. Right. You saw they quickly got her out of it. That was why she was like, "We can't," like you just said, I can't go back to. I mean, like, we progressed Sue Ellen.
Right.
That's funny. I love your. Oh my god, I love your take. I've never thought of it that way, but I love your take. Because it's one of those things. Because Larry Hagman thought the show was dropping without Patrick, Duffy. That's why he did it.
Yeah. And we missed him, and I love Patrick and I love Bobby. Yeah. But I feel like just by doing what they did, which I get why they did it. I mean, and for better or for worse, I mean, now it is so well known for that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like you saw JR and the Dream season, like the Good Morning. I mean, that's like those two things are the big Dallas things.
That is, and is also the reason that my dad stopped watching the show when that happened. He was like, "I'm sorry, the whole season was a dream. I'm done." And so I wasn't allowed to watch it on the main TV anymore. I had to watch it in our basement on the black and white TV that the Commodore 64 was hooked up to.
The Commodore 64. Oh my god, I love it. Yes. Oh my god.
Showing my age.
Yeah, showing my age too. That's hilarious. I know, I get that. I get how people got pissed. No, it was a very controversial move. Very controversial move. But anyway, yeah. So we have that. So that's something about Dallas that was good. And then also, I had another episode where I didn't like the Dallas TNT series. I watched it. I thought there's some great things that were in it. I thought there
mixed feelings.
Potential. Yeah. And I got a big reaction to that too. And I kept saying, one thing I kept saying is, they don't do with the character of Christopher. That's what they know what to do with him, basically.
They didn't.
They didn't. Let me start over. The casting of the show was great. Everybody fits, I think, what we could have thought. The characters. I thought Pamela Rebecca could have been written way better. I thought she was a great potential. There was some great potential in there with her. That they didn't fully follow. And, it's funny because when JR died, which I said that's the best episode to me was JR's death. That was the best episode of the season, and it made me realize Bobby actually is it sounds so bad, but it's like he's an underrated actor. Like, I never really looked at him before until that episode. And when he goes off on Annie, I did an episode on that. When he goes off on Annie finally, and I think all the audiences wanted to go off on her too. And it's like, really, you want to talk? He does this whole monologue, and Brenda Strong just takes it. Like, she just takes it. I was like, Patrick Duffy, and I started looking at older episodes. Like, Patrick really is a good actor. Like,
right, yeah.
But the one thing with the Dream thing you bring up that really also makes me, because I do the Knots Landing after show.
Okay.
And Bobby's death ruined that connection.
Right.
They couldn't connect it anymore because Gary named Bobby after Bobby died.
I know.
So they couldn't make that a dream season too.
Right.
So that kind of that severed, because remember they used to crossover. I do the crossover shows on my shows, and like when Gary shows up here and JR shows up on Knots Landing, but then that had to stop. So I'm with you on some level. Like the dream season messed up two shows on some level in terms of the connection. I mean, Gary and Val came back several times later, but it was never mentioned. You can't mention on Knots Landing. Bobby's still dead. I think they said over there, Bobby's still dead over here. That's like stop laughing. Right. Bobby's dead on our show, but the whole point was Bobby brought them to Knots Landing because Miss Ellie brought them a house. Like it was like,
yeah.
So in a way, not just you just made me think the way you said it. I'm like, yeah, like they kind of messed up that one. It messed up that one too. Kind of like it
made it be like parallel universes or something.
Yeah, because there used to be because Knots Landing,
Doctor Who shit.
Right, exactly. Because Knots Landing was the original show, but Dallas came out first, and then Knots Landing was a spinoff. Yeah. But it was just like, you're right. They kind of killed that one too. They killed that connection. It was like, yeah, you're Ewings, but you're not really related to the current Ewing. I mean, it's
right.
Makes you laugh. But yeah, so doing these shows, so you watched it from the early years too. So you watched it when it was most of the first run too. Got it?
Yeah, I the whole thing with my podcast is that we were kids who watched the show inappropriately young and loved it. And like honestly, I started watching, like I was 6 years old when I really started watching the show. 6. It was the 80s.
I gotta say I was 9, so you're right. That's not really probably good. Yeah, you're right.
Parents weren't like, they're 80s parents. They're just like, whatever. Yes. And I love it. So, it became my favorite show when I was 7. Like, I remember being in the first grade and we had to like talk about our favorite TV, like draw a picture of our favorite TV show. And I drew a big like cowboy hat. And
I love it.
And I used to like play Dallas with my Barbies and a whole thing. And so that's like, now I'm watching it as an adult. And I wasn't actually going to watch ahead because I had not watched the entire series since I watched it in the 90s when it was rerunning.
Yes.
When I was in college. I've had them on DVD, but I just haven't had time.
Yeah.
So I wasn't trying not to watch ahead. And the last couple of weeks I was sick and I totally watched ahead. But and I was like, I forgot how much I love Dallas.
I know. Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good. It's good.
But yeah, so I'm watching it with adult eyes and how like there's a lot of stuff I missed as a child.
Oh yes. Now I want to ask you a question. So how did you decide I'm gonna do is this your first podcast? And you and how did you come to decide I'm gonna do a Dallas one?
Because I love podcasts. I listen to podcasts all the time. And then I went to the Dallas 40th anniversary party at South Fork in 2018, where I hung out with my friend Sarah, who I'd met at the 30th anniversary party in 2008. I'd met her and this guy Will there, and we became online friends. And then when the 40th was happening, Will, who lived in London, was like, we have to get a hotel together and go to Dallas. And I was like, I don't know. I'm in Seattle. He's like, bitch, I'm in London. Like, you're going. So
you're like way closer. He's like, if I'm coming from London, you're way closer.
Right. So we got a room together. We had so much fun. I'm sure. And we were just talking about, and I was like, this is so fun. And I want to watch Dallas and I want someone to like keep me on it to watch the whole thing. So that's why I was like, let's do a podcast. And then it just worked. Will couldn't do it because of the time change. It just
9 hours. Yeah. He's ahead.
So, but then I met Josh there and Josh used to do the Ultimate Dallas website. He's one of the people who did that.
Oh yeah, I know that website. Okay, he did that. Okay, yeah, I know that website. Yeah, I remember that.
And he knows like a lot of just like trivia and facts, and he knows some of the cast because he would interview them for the website and stuff. So I was like, hey, do you want to? I guess like Larry Hagman called him like the biggest, like he's the person who knows all the facts about Dallas. So I was like, okay, I need you. So then we got Josh, and then Melanie was the next season, she had also worked with Josh on Ultimate Dallas, and she just asked, like, "Hey," I was like, "Yeah, we need one more person." So, so then she did it. So, and it is my first podcast. I've never podcasted before, but I'm a video editor. So I actually edit my podcast in Premiere. So I edit it on my video editing software. But
that's smart. That's smart.
I so I know a little bit about that, and I've gotten better through the years. We've been going for 3.5 years now. So we've been improving as we go. If you listen to the early episodes, you can tell we had a lot to learn.
Yeah, I know how it is. I've been doing podcasting 8 years. I know how it is. I'm like, oh, I said so 10,000 times. I said, okay, got it. Because you laugh, you have to laugh.
Right.
I know that's exciting because number one, you capture the spirit of what. Okay, so I was in a place called AfterBuzz TV. That's how I got into podcasting. They were this podcast network that had all these connections, and they had all these thousands of shows and all these hosts. And I was doing that for 5 years. But I was doing the current soap shows, Bold and the Beautiful, Days of Our Lives. I was doing those. So when I went on my own, they closed down. When I went on my own, I was like, I'm gonna do those. I'm gonna continue doing those. But my fans were like, we're doing the older shows. So I started doing Falcon Crest, Knots Landing, the Colbys. I didn't do Dynasty, but I did Colbys, and I did Dallas, of course. Dallas is my favorite of all of them. That's my favorite of all the nighttime. And it's funny because it's different than the current soaps that they're still on. So I'm doing I have co-hosts every week. We talk about the current, what happened that week before. And I was like, so how do I want to do this format? And so I decided I want to talk about whatever the fuck I want to talk about. I just decided I'm going to pick things. It could be an episode. It could be a character. It could be a scene. I was going to pick stuff to talk about. But you capture the same spirit that I have. We love the show. We're also critical of the show. We love the show. The theme is we love the show. So we want to express that to you, the listener out there, and the watcher. And I think there's some places out there, that's why some go on message boards for things, they're just so negative. It's like, do you actually like the show? Like, you keep talking so much shit about it. Like, do you actually like it? We can criticize, but we like I can tell you love the show, right?
You can criticize it because you love it, and you're and that's like, we make fun of some things because that's Dallas is cheesy. Like, that's
right.
One of the things about it is cheesy. It's supposed to be. Right. And in some of the things that they try to handle big topics, mostly the early seasons. And sometimes they did amazing, and sometimes not so much.
Right.
Sometimes it's not. Right. So it's I think it's important to point that out. I don't know. Just talk about it.
Who is your favorite character?
My favorite character? Jenna Wade.
So you remember there were 2 Jenna Wades, of course. There's Morgan Fairchild. 3. Oh, right. No, you're right. Okay, I'm glad you corrected me. You're 3. I know Morgan Fairchild in real. I know her. But of course, Priscilla Presley, we love. I forgot who the third one was. I forgot who she.
Francine Tacker.
That's what I remember picturing her. All right. So, what is it about Jenna Wade that you really like?
I think this is a question I've been asking myself. Because, like, what was it at me at 7 that was like?
Yeah, you connected to her.
I really connected to her. She was beautiful, and she is beautiful. Yeah, but I think she's kind of a badass, and she didn't take shit from Bobby. And like, Bobby was like, "Oh, you can't work in this restaurant." She's like, "Are you kidding me? Like, I can do what I want. Like, I'm taking care of my kid. Whatever. Bye." So she stood up for herself. She didn't need Bobby. She wanted Bobby, and that was, I think, her whole storyline was that, like, she loved Bobby. She had loved Bobby since she was a child. And then they grew up together, and she, as like a young adult and 18, 19-year-old, was like, they're supposed to get married, and she's like, I'm not ready for this. I want to go out. And then she did, and then realized, like, oh, I made a mistake. And then she came back, and Bobby was already, like, gone. So she was like, okay. And so she waited for Bobby and Pam to break up, and then Bobby went looking for her, and then she was like, all right, well, I'm gonna do this, but it's because she wanted him, not because she needed him. And I don't know, she was always clear about that. That was her whole thing. And
what do you think about that's great. What do you think about Jenna and Ray and Luke?
I think Jenna and Ray are a huge trauma bond. I think that they were never going to last. both were reeling from their relationships ending. Ray was like his wife and his, with their child has left. And now he's like, oh, I'm going to take care of her because she needs, and Jenna really like was, because, okay, if you take the dream season out of it and you think about it, she got out of jail. Mm-hmm. And then like 2 days later, Lucy gets married.
Yes.
And she sees Bobby they're talking about the wedding, and she sees Bobby being like, oh yeah, when do I get married? And kind of like, so she's like, okay, well, let's wait to get married. And then literally he leaves, sleeps with Pam, comes back the next morning, is like, by the way, I'm going to marry her. You have to move out. Bye.
I know. So she's like, that was so rude. Oh my God.
So cold. So then she has to like move out, get a house, like with her kid. And Bobby's just like, whatever, bye, I'm getting married.
So he totally did. Poor Charlie too. He just like, I gotta go.
Charlie. And so she's reeling, and then so Ray comes in and like kind of helps take care of her, and they kind of trauma bond together. And I don't think that was ever gonna last. I think that's why one of the reasons is I don't think Cynthia Sidere watched this season's.
Well, apparently she didn't watch anything. I read she didn't watch anything. I heard she didn't watch anything. So give me started on her. Don't get me started.
So I don't think she knew that a character existed, but I think that's one of the reasons Jenna, because I don't think that they would have lasted at all. So, and I think it's terrible that Bobby like literally never. He always wanted his own biological child and completely ignored Lucas.
I see now, yeah. Oh my God. So that'd be another show. I'd have to back on another show because I have such feelings about the TNT Dallas that they didn't do. I thought, would it be kind of cool if Lucas came back to claim his Ewingness?
Right, because they all birthright and all that. Like that's his biological father.
Right. And do you? There's so much. Oh my God, there's so much. Well, here was my thing, and I said it on my show. I thought, even though I love Josh Henderson, he was great as John Ross. He was great. I wanted him to be the good guy and be under Bobby's wing, and I wanted Christopher to be the bad guy and close to JR. That's what I wanted.
That would have been awesome. Yeah,
I think it should be the opposite because Christopher knows he's not a blood Ewing. I thought that would be interesting. Right. And you bring Lucas back in there. That could be a very. That's what I thought. That's what I said.
Chills.
No, seriously, right?
Yeah.
I told my brother this, and he was like, he always thought it was the opposite. He goes, "Next, James, I'm on your side now about that." I totally turned around. It's like only because I'm a writer, and I write stuff. So I was like, I think that would be great conflict because because Christopher and JR. I mean, he is Kristen's son, which is Sue Ellen's. Now, it's all related.
It's all related.
Yeah. Right. And I thought John Ross wouldn't be nothing like his father. Go the opposite. Right. That's why I said that. And then Pamela Rebecca would just mess things up. Like I thought she should have came in there guns blazing. She did it first. She was like guns blazing. Then they kind of neutered her somehow, whatever. I mean, between the two guys, she's in love with John Ross. No, she's in love with me. And then Christopher, they didn't do anything with him.
And with Christopher, honestly, they could have now with DNA. He could have done a DNA test and found out he really was JR's son.
That's another one. That's another girl. Gets the bell. She gets the bell. Mary gets the bell. That's another one. That those kind of mystery things we could have like.
You could have easily.
But wait, did they kill Christopher at the I think they killed Christopher.
They did. The last episode they killed Christopher.
So I'm like, why do you kill Christopher? He's a legacy character. I don't understand I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they just didn't know what to do with them.
They didn't. I'm glad you're frustrated like I am. I said there are a lot of
no.
I know a lot of folks who liked the TNT version. I thought there were points that were okay, but there was such potential they didn't.
Yes, I liked parts of it. I've not rewatched it since it was first on, but there was so many continuity errors that it drove me crazy. And like here's my thing. You have 13 years of a show full of storylines. Why are we making stuff up that we know didn't happen? Miss Ellie was not in an institution in 1981. We just watched all the episodes from 1981. That never happened. Why are we making that up? Why are we creating this character of Carmen? Why don't they make what's her face be
Yeah.
Teresa's daughter.
Yeah, that's what my brother said. He said the same thing. He was like, yeah, that was weird. That was totally weird too. Yes.
It could be Teresa and Raul's kid, you know?
Yeah. I know. No, I know. We're with you on that.
Why are we doing this? Like, who are you making the show for?
But like I said, I had heard Cynthia did not watch the original series.
What I heard was that she watched like the first couple seasons and the last couple seasons, and that's it. Which actually tracks. If you look at what she picked from, the
yeah, right, no, right.
It's like bringing back Tracy. Like, come on, like what? Bring back. I mean, I know I'm partial to Jenna Wade, but if you're gonna bring back one of Bobby's exes, bring back the big one, which is Jenna Wade, with his son.
Exactly. And I'm with you completely. And then what killed me is, okay, you bring Gary on from Knots Landing. I thought, okay, he's an alcoholic. Sue Ellen. I kind of like them together. I thought after JR dies, but no, then you bring Val on for an episode and Chase him and he goes. I'm like,
yeah, like they're just there for what reason? I don't know.
So
okay,
go ahead, please.
And so okay, while we're
I love it. Please.
So I guess we're not supposed to know that Pamela Rebecca was who she was at the beginning, but like so she's getting married without her mother there,
right?
Without Afton.
That was we kept waiting for her to come back. I'm like, I'm sure the Judy Lander, which Lander's sister was, I'm sure she's available.
Yeah,
why would came back.
Yeah. Well, she was there in like one of the later episodes. They brought her back, and I'm like,
I don't think they asked her. I don't think they really asked her.
Probably, yeah.
I don't think they did.
And Cliff, that was hashtag not Mike Cliff.
My brother said the same thing. I think he said the same thing. It was weird. And also, what's funny is I'm in talks to have Morgan Brittany on my show, who played Catherine Wentworth. And so, but we're all kind of hoping to bring her back a little for some trouble. I think there was all you said. There was so much to mine. And if we want to do some good cameos or some good little storyline arcs, there's story back there to pull.
There's so much story. Yes.
So I agree with you completely. Yes. They just didn't do that. I don't mind some updates. Like I said, Bobby being with a new woman, that makes sense because because there's some time between. He's a good-looking guy. Of course, he has. Annie was really good. She stood up to JR. She was good, whatever. But instead of adding all her crazy storyline that made no sense, whatever, and Highland, all that, whatever.
Yeah.
Like I said, bring back a Jenna Wade, bring back a this person, bring back an Afton, bring back whatever to kind of, bring back a Jamie Ewing or something. Like, we always really could have went from, we're still alive, still alive, and they're still around, and really work them, and really work them into the storyline. They just didn't do it. They didn't.
I know, it's a shame.
I did watch it. I watched it to the end. I watched it too. It was Dallas. I'm going to watch it until the episode. But I was frustrated after the first season. I kind of liked. It was like start off kind of good. Then towards the first season, I didn't like it. And then the second season, I was like, okay, I'll watch it. Then I was like, if they do a third season, it's going to be painful. But I got to watch it. And what's so funny is I actually enjoyed the new Dynasty. I thought I was going to hate it.
I didn't watch that.
Oh, it to me. It exceeded all my expectations. I think the way they did it was so unique. All the actors were really good. There's folks who hate it. I did the Dynasty. People hate. Oh my god, they hated me for liking it. And I got like death threats on that one too. It was so crazy. But I'm like, but I feel like Dynasty went into their history, and that's what Dallas. You said you have 13 years. You have 3 movies. Yeah. You have, you didn't go into any of the history. I mean, you didn't go into any of the history. And it's definitely. So they revisited the Pam thing for a minute. And I was like, but that was almost unnecessary too. It's like, well, we know she's gone. I mean, like, it's just
right.
So we got to revisit that again. It was like, it was kind of like.
I think that they revisited because the fans kept being like, where's Pam? Right. Where's Pam? Blah, blah, blah. Where's Pam?
No, it's to shut them up. No, I agree with you. It was to shut them up. And I was just like, we really don't need this storyline. Like, we really don't.
Know what we need though? This is my idea. This is what we've been talking about on our podcast. We really want, it's never going to happen. They need to do like basically after Dallas the early years, do Dallas like starting in the early 60s. And I think that's the only way you could bring it back at this point. And because then you cast a young JR, a young Bobby, and it's taking place in Dallas. So have it start in like 1963. Going around the whole thing, and then you could literally have up until 1978.
That's true. I did episode. My episodes that people liked it, they laughed. I was like, remember when Ray and Lucy had sex in the first season? And everybody's like, we forget about that, and they're half uncle, half niece. I was like,
and he's like 35 and she's 17.
Let me sip my coffee on that one. Yes. So that's what my podcast is like. I would bring things up. I would totally pull it out of the thing and just talk about it. And I'll say that's part of the thing about doing these podcasts. The good fans, I enjoy them. And so I'm enjoying to hear people respond to our podcast that we just did right now. We won't respond. I'm sure they respond to it. But it's just the fanatical ones that make me a little nervous because again, like you, disagree with me is not a big deal. Like I do reaction shows, so you could give me your reaction. I mean, I do that. All my other shows are like that too. I do Star Wars stuff, everything. So I get it. People have their directions, but it's the ones who come really hard at you and relentless. That's the ones I get a little nervous when I go, okay, I don't need that. I don't need you, DMing me 10 times a day with the same stuff. Like, no, Pam was the best. I'm like, oh, I totally get it. I love Pam. Good, great. I'm glad you enjoy that. I'm just move on to the next story. Like, why are we stuck on? Yeah, I had a few of those who get stuck on something.
Yeah, I think that's also another reason I started the podcast is to carve a little niche for myself into the fandom because I find some of the fandom to be problematic. You know, there's like the people who like honestly like, I mean, yes, love to hate JR, whatever, but honestly think like everything JR did was amazing. And he's like, it's basically like looking up to Don Draper, you know, you're like, how was I supposed to look up to Don Draper? Yeah. And and that's fine to do, but they can be a little problematic. And also, you can't disagree with anyone. And I was like, I just want to have opinions and say my opinions.
And you think about it, and you have your opinions, and life goes on. Like, let's go to the next podcast. Like, that's why. I mean, please share your opinion with me. That's fine. But let's just move on to the next thing. Like, let's not just coming after me. Or you're a this. You're a JR lover. Or you're a JR hater. It's like that's not what we're saying. Like that's kind of we're just presenting to you when we see these scenes what we think.
What we think, but critiquing it. Yeah,
exactly. It's we all love Larry Hagman. We're all sad he died in real life.
Right.
JR. We all know he's JR. JR is JR. Like we know he's an iconic cultural icon figure. Every Dallas fan in the world, no matter what side of the aisle come on, we acknowledge that he was one of the greatest. He was one of the greatest villains, anti-heroes, what do you want to call them, in history. He just is. And Dallas, to me, as we end I can talk to you forever as we end the podcast. I just think that Dallas was one of the best shows ever on television. I really do. I think it was totally. When it was good, it was good.
Groundbreaking. Yes.
I mean, really, when it was good, it was good. And it does bring people like all of us, different backgrounds, different ages, together. And it still does, 40-something years later. It really does.
Yeah. And I love that it's finding a new generation now. And I'm hoping, because I know that it's being made into HD right now. Yes. And I think it will be on whatever the new platform that Discovery and HBO is turning into. Yeah. And when that happens, I am hoping even more people watch it because it'll be easier to watch it. I think that's the problem. It's been hard to watch. So people had to seek it out. So I'm really looking forward to maybe Gen Z even. Yeah. And also, folks, on YouTube, people have some funny clips on there too. So you can check those out on YouTube too. There's always kinds of clips on there if for shorthand, if you're like, there's a scene between Maselli and Cliff. I did a whole thing on that and how they kept put the digger bars. As you go on YouTube, there's scenes of those scenes. They put those scenes up there. There's some Dallas fans. Also, we're gonna shout out to Dallas Dakota and of course the Ultimate Dallas and all those folks who for years were Definitive Dallas.
Definitive Dallas. They would talk about Dallas for years. And so we give shout outs to them also. And to my brother, who's a Dallas fan also. We always talk about it all the time, JR. He goes, his name is initials are JR, so he goes by JR. My brother.
That's awesome.
It's hilarious. And that was his favorite character. I got him the JR doll, everything. He's his favorite character, but he actually his initials are JR. So that's what he goes by. So awesome. We have a good laugh for that. Mary Hunter, please promote your podcast right now. Promote it. When does it come out? Everything. Promote it.
Well, it is called the Ewing BBQ Podcast. We do not have, I tried to have it come out on a certain day, but that hasn't worked out because of life.
Same here.
And so we come out probably an average 3 times a month. Because I edit it because we get long-winded sometimes. And we, like I said, have spoilers, so I cut out the spoilers. And but I usually put those on our Patreon. If you want those.
Very smart.
And sometimes we get into some like political stuff that I'll just put that for the people who actually want to hear it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So join us if you want to. We're doing episode by episode. We have been doing it 3.5 years. We just had our 100th episode. And so that's not 100 episodes because we've had extra ones. We've had some DOA meetings where it's a little bit more like this, where we just talk about Dallas and some other things. We had a special episode when Ken Churchill died and stuff like that. So anyway, and we're at season 5. Wow, and so I feel like we're gonna be around hopefully for a while.
Yeah, a while. Now you're on Patreon too. So what's your Patreon?
We are on Patreon. So we are Ewing BBQ on Patreon. So you can check us out. And if you find us, we're on all of the Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, and look in your show notes. You can find our Patreon. We have a Facebook group. We have an Instagram. And we even have some merch available. So check us out if you love Dallas.
Check them out. I'll put some of the stuff in the description, of course, here. Of course, I'm also on Patreon as James Lott Jr., so I'm on Patreon, but we're all James Lott Jr.'s are sold at James Lott Jr. and all social media platforms. My Dallas After Show, along with all my other after shows, are on every single streaming service, from iHeartRadio to Spotify to Apple, Google, everything you can think of. Just type in Dallas After Show. Like, it's that simple. Just type in Dallas After Show. So you're going to type it. So remember, you're going to type in Dallas After Show. You're going to type in Ewing BBQ Podcast. You're going to follow both.
Yes.
And you're going to listen to both. Mm-hmm. I'm saying you probably want to go listen to the episode first and then come to me over here and get the spoilers. Right. I said go to them first, then come to me, and then you see what I'm talking about. Maybe I'll find the corresponding thing that I'm talking about. Because I do tell who shot JR. So, I mean, if you don't know who shot JR, I do spoil it on my podcast. I have a whole episode on who shot JR. I had the shirt and everything. I was all into that whole thing. But no, please support them. Mary, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for inviting me. I loved it.
Yeah, you have to come back no time. And we'll see you guys next time. Enjoy Dallas. Enjoy one of the best shows on TV.